What's going on, guys? Today we are watching the trailer for Hell Is Us, or rather it's like a I don't know, combat demo. What the fuck am I trying to say, y'all? It's gameplay. It's gameplay. My brain just completely skipped a beat right there, y'all. I don't know what the fuck just happened. Now I'm watching the Hell Is Us brings a new weird approach to the sci-fi action RPG is what the title of the video is called. But ultimately, I think we're actually just getting more gameplay of it. So I'm really curious about this one. This is a game that's been on my radar for a minute now. I think since like a couple state of plays back, and looked interesting. And yeah, just want to see more about it to see if it will continue to engross me with just some of the things that I've seen so far, or if I might fall off of it a little. But we'll see either way.
Hi everyone, my name is Jonathan Jacques Billetet. I'm the creative director and the art director on Hell Is Us. I hope you enjoyed the trailer that you've seen recently. Today we're back in the spotlight. We're going to show you a bit of gameplay, a bit more than what you've seen in the trailer, and I hope that you will enjoy this part greatly. All right, so let's start with the basics. So Hell Is Us is set to be released in 2025.
Do you guys mind if I'm on top of this, dude? Pause.
X, PlayStation 5, and PC. So the game is a bit of a take back to games from the 1990s. We're a team of passionate people. The average on the team is like 20 years of development experience. So we're from a different generations, and we have a lot of love for how the games in the 90s were made and how they were played and experienced, especially the fact that there was no hand holding, there was no silver plattering. You kind of had to figure stuff out by yourself. You were really in control of your exploration and your own discoveries, and this is what we're trying to do in Hell Is Us, obviously with modern flair and kind of like modern knowledge of game design and whatnot, but very much put you back in the driver's seat of your experience and of your exploration, and then
that water looks good,
the joy of your discoveries. So Hell Is Us takes place in a country called Hadia. Hadia is in the grips of a vicious civil war. You play the role of Remy. Remy is actually
this feels like you in like the woods of Michigan.
Like it sometimes happens in those countries.
They're like the rainy.
That is Hadia is a hermit state, is a turtle state.
Like
it's completely
springtime.
closed off on itself. Nobody goes out, nobody comes in, and that's why Remy's mom decided
like
to
Montana or somewhere.
Better life. He grew up in the foster home system or the foster system in Canada. He's always wanted to come back to Hadia. He wants to find his parents again. He wants to kind of like
okay, hold on. I think I missed something important. Is this in the real world?
Goes out, nobody comes in, and that's why Remy's mom decided to smuggle. And what I mean by that is Hadia is a hermit state, is a turtle state. It's completely closed off on itself. Nobody goes out, nobody comes in, and that's why Remy's mom decided to smuggle him out so he can have a better life. He grew up in the foster home system or the foster system in Canada. He's always wanted to come back to Hadia. He wants to find his parents again. He wants to kind of like confront them. He's got a lot of questions for them. He understands why they abandoned him, but yet abandonment is pretty much the biggest trauma that a child can have, and there's like a loop that hasn't been closed properly for him towards this situation and his parents. When the game starts, Remy has finally been able to infiltrate Hadia during the brutal civil war that I was talking about. Remy is a ON peacekeeper. He quit his post, he went AWOL, infiltrated the country, and this is where the game starts. Remy remembers two things, and that means the players remember two things. It's that his village of birth was called Jova, and his father was the blacksmith of Jova. Those are the only clues you begin the game with, and these are the only clues that Remy also know. So equipped
off
with
top, this is way different than what I was expecting it to be.
Try to find your way to Jova.
That's crazy. Just a man in a basement.
To wander around Sinedra Forest. I'm afraid I have very little to offer. A group of strange-looking soldiers arrived here last night in an APC. And perhaps you can ask them for help. It's not the first time I've seen them. They always seem to be.
I thought there was gonna be like a sci-fi fantasy, sort of weird, Dark Souls-y sort of
just beyond the woods to the north.
game / world. Not like completely Dark Souls-y, but like just like elements of it.
They will lead the way through.
What it feels like
The gate to enter the woods is locked.
I don't know.
Take this key to unlock it.
Like I'm not, it doesn't necessarily feel like survival horror, It almost
so
feels in
let's talk
some
about
ways closer to
this
that.
philosophy that I've mentioned earlier,
Almost.
which is, I said the word silver plattering is something that I had been thinking about for quite a few years, and the team as well, which is if you look at modern day or contemporary adventure games and RPGs, pretty much everything is given to you on a silver platter. What I mean by that is when you explore, everything appears in front of you. You know, you have your compass on top of you that's like a sixth sense, like a magical sense that detects, all the caves and all the cool stuff around you and the towers and this and whatnot. It just appears magically, and you have your map, and you have your mini map, and you have your quest markers, and you have your objective markers, and you can drop your own markers, and you have your quest journals, and it just never ends. And if you think about it, what happens with that is that you're not truly exploring. You're just kind of like flying by wire, and when you find something, it's not really your discovery. It was kind of handed to you on a silver platter. So what you're looking at now is we're having a discussion with a bloke named Ernest Cadell. He's telling us certain information, and then he tells us it's quite far. You need to hitch a ride. You might find people that are willing to give you a ride. It's up to the north of my house, so you're gonna have to use your compass, but your real compass, right, with the coordinates on it, north, south, east, west, blah, 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 and follow that. And he tells you that in the Lost Woods, in order to find your way out, just follow the wind chimes. He says, I've attached them there for my kids when they were young because they kept on getting lost in those bloody woods. And then he tells you, follow the sound of the wind chimes and you'll find your way on the other side of the woods. That's how we do it. It's very organic. It's very realistic. Someone in real life could have told you the exact same thing. So the environments, the visuals of the game are not just there to illustrate.
I'm curious
they're there to
if
communicate. So you need to
they don't have any sort of enemies or anything because
NPCs tell you
of the presentation,
and you'll discover
or
things, and you will truly
this is how it's actually going to feel,
and the great joy that comes with that.
like kind of scarce. I understand that, like, I feel like I've seen that more recently with developers wanting to like tell players less. I feel like there was this surge of like good game design equaled like telegraphing more to players, right? But let me just pause this so I can actually focus on what I'm about to say. And I don't think it's a bad or like a good or a bad thing. I think it's just depending on like your game. I really loved it in Final Fantasy VII Rebirth because there's so much to do. I didn't want to have to like think about like what all I have to do or where, or just find everything. Some things you do have to find, but not like most of it, right? I think there are some games I think it's like totally fine to like not have that. So on the other side of like another open world sort of game like Elden Ring, I think like Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, it just kind of gives you all the direction, tells you where to go for everything. And then on the opposite side, I guess like Elden Ring, where it doesn't tell you like really where to go for the most part, other than just like generally speaking, these sites of grace will point you more or less into the direction of the story. I think one of the challenges of people who are trying to revert back to like that sort of 90s, gaming, of just not really telling you stuff, which back then I think was just a case of game design as an idea and as a system, not system, but I guess as an idea wasn't as developed. So games were just harder because they weren't nearly as intuitive. So people want to go back to that. I think it's fine if they accomplish it, correctly. I think one of the things that they have to make sure they do, make sure that rewarding is to make sure that exploration is rewarding. That's what Elden Ring did. Every time you saw something, you said, "Can I go there?" And you could. And even when you couldn't, you could go there eventually. And there's so many different kinds of weapons or spells or NPCs and things like that. And hey, what's going over here? Like, what's going on with this building? Oh, what the? There's an elevator. Where does this take me? Then you find a whole other world. Elden Ring did a fantastic job of not giving you a compass or anything like that. Not even telling you where NPCs are or anything, but never making you feel like you were lost, or never making you feel like, oh, I just don't know what to do or where to go or anything. It's like there's always something to do. You always felt like you're getting rewarded with your curiosity, right? This guy, as he was talking about like how organic it is. Think about like this game so far, and it's not a bad thing, but this game feels a lot more slow and grounded, and maybe a little bit more just like mysterious than action oriented. I feel like even though the combat in Elden Ring is slow, the game itself is, I'll say, relatively fast. Like, because you can explore, you can get on horseback, and you just see things and you just go, right? You don't got to think about your following chimes or anything. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I think it's a good thing, like the way that they're like, you know, making it organic and like you got to pay attention and all that sort of stuff. But I'm curious if I would get the same feeling that I got while playing Elden Ring, which is the feeling of being rewarded and feeling like the exploration came natural to me, and that I naturally was curious to, oh, what's going on over there. I think that there are different worlds and different kinds of different takes on this concept, though, of like not giving people hints and letting them just go, right? They're definitely different like takes on it. This is a much more feeling like a more slower, methodical take on it. Was Elden Ring was like, oh, see pretty thing, let me go over there, and then it rewards you with that curiosity. I think that maybe will work better for most people, the Elden Ring approach, because this one will require you to think more in this game, which isn't a bad thing. It's a different experience, but I'm just curious like how it's gonna feel when like I'm actually playing. Like, am I going to enjoy it, or is it gonna feel like, oh, like I gotta do a little too much work, you know? I don't know.
Be considered part of our player plattering philosophy. So here's a puzzle.
Now it's
and
starting to feel
obviously
more
a solution
sci-fi.
to the puzzle, but nothing eventually is going to tell you, you know, if the player ends up kind of like taking a bit of time to find a solution. There's not going to be any artificial kind of ways that are going to help him or tell him what to do. Remy's not going to start talking to himself, or i.e. talking to the player with, you know, little clues and whatever. It's really up to you to figure them out. And in the way that the player plattering is inserted in this, we have a good example here with your trusty drone named Cappy. By the way, you can tell now that Remy has his poncho and he has his sword and he has his drone. So it's after he's acquired them, right? Because at the beginning of the game, you saw he was not dressed like that. Now there's a reason why he ends up dressed like this. There's a reason why he needs these things, this equipment, but we don't need to get into these details today. So anyway, there's an ancient language in the country and you kind of find it throughout the game. And the drone has a software, one of his many softwares, and this specific one can translate the ancient language. So this puzzle, the way that it works, you need to kind of like explore and observe your environment around this specific puzzle in order to find the clues on how to solve it. You need the drone, your trusty Cappy, his name is Cappy, also there's something behind that, of course, and you translate those old texts. It gives you little passages of a poem or a psalm or something like that, and through what they tell you and the order in which they seem to have to be pieced back together, you find your clues on what this puzzle does and how to solve it. So again, the players are kind of like just led to their own devices.
The thing is, like,
things are there.
I hate puzzles
and you have to explore
in games to most of the time. I don't know, most of the time I just feel like I'm just not much of a puzzle guy in general. I like the ones in like God of War 2018 and Ragnarok. I feel like those were fun, interactive with mechanics that you already are familiar with in the game, and like you could solve them. Like you could act like they weren't too difficult. Like you did have to like. You had to think about them.
So by now, you've
but they weren't like the hardest things. They were actually like fun. I like puzzles that don't overstay their welcome. These I feel like I would,
if you've seen the trailer,
probably
you of course notice that
not
there's
get past
another
them.
big aspect to the game, which is third-person melee combat. So we like to say that the game is 50% exploration and 50% combat. The game is not at all only about combat, and it's definitely not at all just walking around and figuring stuff out. It's the combination of both, and we also think that the way that we've combined them is quite refreshing and quite unique in Hell Is Us. So, like I said, combat is an integral part of the game. I do want to emphasize now that we're not a Souls-like game. The game is a lot more mid-core. It's have fun, get in it, and hack and slash.
Okay.
It doesn't mean it's easy. It's not overly hard. There's a learning curve. There's subtleties. There's little things that we've invented just for the flair and the flavor of Hell Is Us. It's very crunchy. I think the friction is pretty good, and I hope you'll enjoy it. So there's a wide variety of
different
enemies
weapons
in the game. So we have kind of like a more common enemy type, which we call the Hollow Walker. So it's these kind of humanoid, bipedal, white enemies that you can see here with the holes in their faces and their chests.
Y'all having a party over here?
There's a reason why they're called Hollow Walkers, and there's different types of them and different kind of tiers of strength and powers. But when you're facing pretty much the biggest threats in the game, it's what we call like a dual entity. So it's like a Hollow Walker has a haze inside of it. So it's when the haze is present. I'm not going to get into the details right away of what the
Yeah, it
haze
definitely
represents.
doesn't
It's all part
feel
of the
so
lore
like
and
a
what you
Souls-like
figure
in
out
terms
the
of
game.
combat.
But when you're facing a combo like these dual entities, and it can go to like 3 of them, 4 of them, there's the herders, there's the fervents, and different types like that. But that's when you really need to master the combat system. That's when you start having to use
The
all
enemies are
tools and
interesting.
techniques at your disposal. The drone has tons of skills to upgrade it.
I don't know
and
if the
drone is very much
animations
your
of the
little
normal
sidekick to
humanoid
help you
ones,
in
I mean
fighting
normal,
multiple enemies
are
at a time.
completely
He's not a
speaking to
sidekick
me.
in a sense where he talks and he has an AI. He's very much a drone that has its own protocol to do this crowd management during the combat. So you have your
But-
different weapons.
but it's still
you have your
interesting.
Olympic skills, attack to weapons, which is basically you consider as your magic. Even though in the game it's not considered magic, there's kind of like a scientific base to them. But that's when you really need to master all the little subtleties of the combat system, use all the tools in your arsenal and at your disposition, and get in the melee with these kind of dual or triple or quadruple entities and being able to manage them and
Dang.
be victorious. So like I mentioned, here specifically, you can see a combat against Olympic entity that has
I like that there's
multiple
different weapon
pieces
types. I
attached
thought
to
that,
the
like,
Hollow Walker. That's when it gets
based
really
on some of the
complex, it
previous
gets very
trailers and such,
overwhelming
that, like,
because
we were
you're
only gonna have
alone,
that
but you
one
trust your
sword.
little Cappy. So you need to use its skill. So for example, Cappy has a skill where you can distract an entity, either a haze or a hollow walker. You can use the forward charge, which is one of my favorite. You also have the typhoon. You have the super dash skill, which is another one
Hey.
of my favorites. So you can start dashing sideways,
Got two
forward,
axes, you kinda like
backwards,
Kratos.
really fast. It gives you like this Japanese action game style. And then you also have your Olympic skill, so you need to find the glyphs in the game and you need to attach them to your weapons. And this is when you start getting powers that come from these weapons that allow you to take care of these enemies.
And I'm seeing more of the combat. I mean, I'm liking it more.
Ways. That's when the VFX and the sound effects.
I think it's probably still needs to cook. I mean, it's alpha footage, so like I'm not gonna, I'm not gonna come down on the game, guys. Obviously, it is cooking.
And let's go back
Right.
to the investigation and the exploration.
They're not
So,
done with
like
it,
I
so
said,
I'm not
there's
gonna
no
come down
silver
on it,
patterning.
but
There's
the
none
more
of
I
these
saw,
kind of
the
like
more I
five-bar
enjoyed it.
wire. It's up to you to figure out what your kicker is. What I mean by kicker is what you're supposed to achieve at this specific moment, what you're actually looking for, where to look for it, and how to look for it, right? Remy and the players are at a ratio of information which is 1-1.
It's in Akasa Marshes. It's quite a ways from here.
So one of the tools that we're providing you to still kind of help you a bit and manage this 1-1 kind of like knowledge ratio is your data pad. Think of it as a bit your investigation wall if you want, but in a digital 90s format. So your clues, your leads, the important people that are related to your investigation, trying to find your parents and a lot more eventually, are all stored here. They're linked together by the relationships, and now it's up to you to go and investigate about them. So as you can see here, some of the areas can be quite wide opened. This one here called the Casa Marshes is one of the bigger ones. And as I spoke quite a bit already, the game doesn't hold your hand or doesn't really tell you where to go. So out of your main leads or clues or ideas that you have in your head of what you're supposed to do or where you're supposed to go at
Dang,
any
what the
given
hell?
moment,
I just seen them
you also
bodies
get
on that
attracted
tree.
by a lot of points of
Damn.
interest or just little things in the environment that pique your curiosity. And as you walk towards them or explore, that's
Dang,
when
more
you start
weapon
also
types.
making a ton of like peripheral or side discoveries on your own, things that you cannot solve right away, or things that you might think that there is a thing to be done with it when there's none. And it's all part of the fun stuff and the kind of like experience that we're providing in the game. So as you can see here, there's a tree with people that have been hung. Like I said, this takes place during a very vicious civil war between two different ethnicities in the countries that are still basically the exact same people. And you found this tree. It's actually not part of the Golden Path
Damn.
or not part of something tremendously important in the
What
game.
was that?
But there's still something around it. There's still something to be found, and it's probably linked to more stuff that you can do in relation to it. But that you had to do your own exploration to find it, and even more of your own exploration and investigation to figure out what it's linked to and what you can do from it if you want. So here we are in a dungeon in the game. So yes, the game has dungeons. This was really important to us. Like I said at the beginning, there's a bit of a love letter to games from the 90s. But one of the challenges was the game takes place in a contemporary setting. The game takes place in 1993. And yet we still wanted dungeons in the game. And I didn't want the dungeons to take place in an abandoned metro station or, in an abandoned factory because it's the modern era. I still wanted the dungeons to be very ancient things. And this brings us to another really important aspect of the game, or one of the very important themes of the game, which is history, historicity, deep history. So history that goes even before history. So there's a lot of mysteries and a lot of lore, and the origin of what's going on in the country and the link to the Civil War is all tied.
It's really interesting, the visuals
since. I won't get into too much details
of like within here and some of the slightly more sci-fi areas, and then like just the outside
varied palettes and moods and
world, which feels almost like normal
quite interesting
world,
and unique that we're doing in.
But then when you go underground, it's like a place like this. It's like, oh, it's like we're in sci-fi land. But then when you're above ground, it almost feels like, oh, we're in normal land.
Thanks a lot. Thanks for being with us. I hope you enjoyed it. I'm extremely grateful to have you guys following us, the team as well. So just to repeat, the game Hell Is Us will be released in 2025 as box series, PlayStation 5.
Oh, it's coming this year.
PC.
Okay. We're like
soon about
halfway through the year.
Beginning. We'll explain other aspects of it and get into sometimes a bit of the minutia. So stay tuned and speak to you soon. Thank you.
All right. So that gave us a lot of information. I enjoyed that presentation. I don't know if it got me more excited, but it didn't get me less excited. I'm still curious about this game. I liked what I saw. I like probably the most interesting part to me was the combat, because I was curious about it. I like that the guy kind of just openly said like it's not a Souls-like. The combat does not quite hit like a Souls-like. Once you have more like fun with it. I like that there's different weapon types. I like customizability in games, even if it's not necessarily an RPG. If there's just different weapon types, and you can, even it seemed like you could like add abilities to your weapons as well. I forget what you called it. Something you can like put abilities onto your weapons with. This was pretty cool. I think if they show like some footage further along in the development, I like it even more. This is all alpha footage, right? So I think I'm gonna give this like a solid 8. I think I pretty much gave the last one similar when I watched it. I'm gonna give it like a solid 8 because I really enjoyed what I saw, and it gave a lot of information. So if you were somebody who were like, man, I wanted to be super combat heavy, or like, oh man, maybe not so much, like I don't know, if you're the kind of person where you like a mix of combat and exploration, this game seems like it's going to give you that. If you're one of those people who don't like the yellow marks when you're climbing, right, in games, like hey, jump here or whatever, then this game might be for you, because it seems like they aren't trying to handhold you at all. Personally, I don't mind that, because I like to have fun playing the games, but I don't always have the time to just figure everything out, because I got real things in life to figure out and to do. So to a degree, I like it. But that doesn't mean that I don't like it though either. Like this still looks pretty interesting to me. The one thing I'm not so keen on, and this is totally subjective, is not from a quality standpoint of what I saw. This is just me. It has nothing to do with the game's quality. This is just a me thing. It's puzzles, dog. In most games, I just do not like puzzles. And maybe it's because I had to do puzzles back in the olden days of games, and they were just I don't know, they're just so much harder, completely like not intuitive at all. But hey, this game looks like it's taking inspiration from older games, but trying to do it, like they said, in a more modern way. So I'm looking forward to it, guys. I'm looking forward to it. This was Hell Is Us extended gameplay. Let me know, guys, what you think of this game so far. I think it has a lot of cool aspects to it visually. It's looking good so far. I like the fact that it's alpha footage. Like I want to see what it looks like in its current state. But it's coming out this year, so I'm sure that they'll have more like trailers and videos coming out in the near future. So just be on the lookout for that. But all right, guys, again, let me know in the comments below, and I'll see you guys later. Peace.